$140,000 that we asked the town for really doesn't cover everything that the library does. So this is kind of just showing you, and this is year to date. This is from July 1st to right now, what we've spent. That's not in our budget on these services. So the first, and if you have any questions about what those things are, those are core library services, a lot of them right now. E-books, music streaming, things that people expect the library to have. And I know we're not considered a business, but I really feel like I run the library as a business, and I'm very competitive as far as, because you know what, people don't have to come to our library. Charlton residents can go to Oxford, they can go to Southbridge, they can go to Dudley. They don't have to come to us. We want them to come to us, and actually we want other residents from other towns to come to us too, because we want to be the best, or I want the Charlton Library to be the best. So we really have to keep up with all of this technology, and there is cost to that, which we never do put into our regular budget that the town sees. So I just, for informational purposes, I just wanted you to be aware of that. So far this year, we've already paid $10,000 for digital services. Then I had,
Are
sure.
most of these licenses?
A lot of them are licenses, yes, most of them are.
They're not purchases, you're not purchasing
Exactly, you don't
Mango.
purchase, right, exactly.
Just a second,
Yeah.
for point of order, more or less. Sherry, do you have everyone's name that's up here right now?
No.
Could you just give her name so she can put them on the minutes?
Bob Hartwig, library trustee.
Cheryl Hanson, Library Director.
And Stefan Sage, chairperson of the library trustees.
Oh, thank you for
Nope,
doing that.
no problem. And then the next category that we've spent quite a bit of money on this year is for the buildings. We had panic buttons in the building already. We've actually added to that. We did not have them in the children's room. So we've added actually panic buttons in the children's room and in my office. So that was an expense. This
Yep, go ahead.
You said this year,
this fiscal year.
fiscal.
This fiscal year, this is what we have spent out of state aid and trust fund.
A little more than half of a calendar year.
Right.
Okay, so kind of,
Right, and a lot of these are annual fees, so like the digital services, well, that's not, number's not going up. I mean, we've paid our fees for this year.
can you give me an estimate, and, sorry to jump ahead,
No,
but
that's
can you
fine.
give me an estimate of how much of this you think this is? Is this 60% of the year, 70% of what it would be?
Well, the digital services, I would say that's it. We are paid up, because those are,
Okay.
we just pay that bill one time a year. So that covers, that $10,000 covers a whole year for that.
Yeah, building, I'd say.
Building, you
If
never
we're
know,
lucky,
things
it
happen.
could be it. If things happen, you know.
And honestly, if you look at the building, that chimney repairs, roof repairs, and ice melt cables, that's very unusual. We usually don't spend that much money in a year on the building. When we decided that we were going to use trust fund money to put the ice melt cables on, because we've had ongoing problems in the winter with huge icicles coming off the building. The ramp in front of the building always has ice on it. We end up roping that off so that somebody doesn't get hurt. So we finally decided this year to use some trust fund money to put the ice melt cables in. And the chimney repairs, there's actually 2 chimneys on the library. One is a false chimney, and it was a false chimney that was leaking. We had a major leak, so that needed to be repaired. And there were some roof repairs that they found when they went up to do the ice melt cables. So that's an unusual number for us, but we're lucky that we had the money and didn't have to come to the town. We had trust fund money for that. The other things are just kind of things that we buy every once in a while. Different chairs and cabinets and things like that.
So I'm sure the
If
chair-
I could mention one other thing, okay, a little bit of money comes in outside from Friends of the Library, do fundraisers like the Holiday Craft Fair and so on. But for the most part, the trust funds are funds that were left over from the library rehab that was done a dozen years ago. And so those are finite. I mean, once they're gone, they'll be pretty much gone, so.
My question was gonna be, how much is in the trust fund, Stephanie?
I knew you were gonna ask that question. Our major trust fund is called the Sibley Trust Fund, and I'm not talking about, John was on the charitable trust fund, which is different, and we haven't touched that in a while for anything major. Our major one is the Sibley Trust Fund, And after we finish paying for the ice melt cables and roof repairs, we'll have about $26,000 left in that.
And that's unrestricted money, you're allowed to spend it
The
on?
Sibley is unrestricted. We do have some other smaller trust funds. Some of them are restricted, some are not, but they're not a lot of money in them.
Any other questions?
Yeah, then we have just the other category was programs. We don't have a programming line item in our regular budget, we never have. And we do a lot of programs at the library, and most of them aren't free. We have to pay the people that come in. So we do use some state aid money for that, and we use Friends of the Library, who fundraise for the library, which Bob said. They pay for a lot of our programs. They pay for all of our museum passes, the discounted museum passes that the library provides for Charlton residents and things like that. So I just wanted you to be aware that maybe $440,000 may sound like a lot of money, but it's really not enough. And I'm not asking for this extra money. We have this money, but for informational purposes, just to let you know that we spend a lot more on that, on kind of core library services.
So last year, you talked about expanding the hours.
We did, and that's
Yeah,
been
how does that
absolutely
work?
fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know, and people think that people don't read books, but our circulation has definitely gone up this past year, and people can say, oh, we were open another day, of course it's gone up. But I keep track of daily circulation, and it's gone up more than that extra day would, if you just correlate that in. It's gonna, so people are still reading, they're still using the library in a lot of different ways. A lot of people that come into the library never check anything out. They just come in and use our Wi-Fi or use our study rooms, or they're there for meetings, things like that. Groups meet there. A big portion of the people that hang out all day are using our Wi-Fi and using the library as kind of their office space.
I guess one question for Donna, as best I can make out, this is exactly what you have in your budget,
Yes.
yeah, plus 35 cents.
We've kind of been back and forth a little bit. One of the issues that was a challenge for us is that the minimum wage keeps jumping up.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, at the library, we have pages who have been at minimum wage, so I'm kind of catching my tail for the next couple of years. It splits on January 1st, there's another flip up, and it's increasing 75 cents an hour every January 1st until we get up to $15 an hour. So we kind of sat back and had a meeting amongst the HR director, myself, and Cheryl about where should people be, and we talked about reclassing one of the pages to a clerk, a circulation clerk style, so that they're an older person can do more. Maybe that's the better way than trying to jump ahead of it, leave the three that were minimum wage at, just moving at minimum wage, and take the one that can work unrestricted hours and put them in that higher category.
All right, so your budget and their budget are a match?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we made it work.
So last year, we talked about you had a sign in and we took it out and we were gonna do something on
Yeah.
our own. Just an update on the sign, I know it's not
Well,
library.
the
but-
town is actually doing he's talking about the electronic sign. The town is actually doing the electronic sign, and it should be going in, I think, in April, if things go the way that.
We need to put it out for procurement, I just was going through the proposal today. So it won't be, we won't be putting it in until spring, but we gotta still bid it out.
Will that be black and white or color? I know that was a question at one
It
time.
won't be in black and white.
I thought-
That's not a zoning issue, the
It
electronic?
is a zoning issue, we're gonna have to go to ZBA.
That would be fantastic if that went through.
Well, you won't
For
have
the
to put
town.
the glass on your head when you change the letters. so.
Well, luckily, I don't have to do it, but yes, that's happened to people I know.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you for running the library as well as you do.
thank you.
So just as an update, at 6:45, I had originally scheduled cemetery, and they had to cancel, and they're gonna need to reschedule at some point. But I was able to take the council on aging, who was scheduled for 8, and have them come in for 6:45.
Perfect.
My wife thanks you, Don.
I thank you.
Yeah, we'll have another meeting on the 27th, you could put it on that.
You're up to like 8 o'clock on that one too, but for cemetery, they may have to come in on that. They didn't have the, data that they're waiting for.
Okay, all right, well, you're gonna reschedule it, so we'll be all set. So Council on Aging is next then.
Yep.
I'm gonna wear my pen.
Where's my pen?
Oh, no, but this one.
Oh, here it is.
That's what I had.
I took my pen. No wonder I was writing so good.
Hole punch.
I did hold punch. Hey, Robin, I hold punch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sometimes I do take my notes.
Okay.
It's kind of small print, sorry.
Ah, same page. Okay, just announce your names for Sherry, and then you're on.
Sure. Elaine Matteris, I'm the Director of the Council on Aging.
Gail Stokes, I'm on the COA board.
Good, thank you very much.
So, we are asking this year for a little bump in our expense account budget. It has not actually been increased in 6 or 7 years or something like that. So that's 1,500, I think we said for that. And then we would like to provide elder bus transportation funding for the people in Charlton, the seniors that take the elder bus to the senior center. We're hoping to maybe increase the number of seniors that come, and maybe they will utilize the elder bus, as long as they don't have other transportation. And it might be a little more affordable for them to come to the center. Because we do ask for a donation for the lunches as well.
So with the back and forth transportation in the lunches, it kind of adds up for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
that
this
would,
is expanded hours on the bus, or?
no, it would just be the days that we're open, the Monday through Thursday. And we would like to be able to pay for their rides back and forth, just, from their home to the center. And now I'd like a separate line on the budget if possible. And then the other thing we would like is, it says capital request on it, is a new stove. The one that we have is working sort of sometimes, and sometimes not. So I know it says capital, I don't know if it's really a
We're
capital.
gonna be taking a look at that. It'll either show up in capital or interdepartmental transfers, depending on if we have some funding that we can
Okay.
change over.
So not part of the operating, not part of the operating.
No,
No.
it will not be. It is a capital, it's a one-time large expense. It would
Yeah.
skew their budget, so we tend to do it in the interdepartmental or capital. The other thing, and maybe I should say this more than Elaine, regarding their budget, you'll see some increases in staffing. We've talked about doing pay equity review, and we've also talked about adjusting salaries so that they're more comparable to what their other towns are doing, not only other towns, but what other department heads and employees are doing within our own town that are comparable. And quite oftentimes, what you may see is that some of the pay levels or jobs that women are doing may be being paid less valued traditionally, but the work is comparable to some of the males. So you will see that we've made some adjustments. I'm not saying we had any issues, but I'm saying there was some adjustments warranted in the Council on Aging. And that also has to do, as Donna mentioned, the minimum wage is also increasing, but Elaine was earmarked for, Elaine and Deb Cheslick were both earmarked for increases. time.
Thank
might be
you.
done.
What about the floor in the Council on Aging? I know that was a thing a few years ago. We're gonna wear it out and then replace it new later on?
I think we're doing that at this point.
Yeah.
We did try to get the contractors who installed the elevator. I think we had actually got them to pay some money towards some of the damages that they've done, and we've kind of set that aside, and that's in stabilization for when we need to have a new floor.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you've asked for it yet, have you? When are you thinking that you may need to replace that? We were hoping to get at least, did we get 10 years out of it? We're close.
I don't remember when it was, I really don't remember
Yep.
when it was.
Currently, the
Put
floor's
in,
okay.
It-
I mean,
it's
it's
not a
wearing,
hazard.
but it's okay at the moment. It's not
It's
dangerous or
okay,
anything.
yeah. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
something we need right this minute.
Okay, got it, preempted by your stove.
Yeah,
Yeah, we need the stove.
definitely the stove first.
Any questions for the council? Oh, go ahead.
What's your average daily census there?
Well, it depends on what we're having. We have different programs,
Yeah.
so you may get, we have a floor yoga class that may come in and then leave, or may have some that stay for lunch. We have a chair yoga class, we have exercise class, we have different things going on during the day at different times. So I can't tell you on a daily basis what,
All right, so on an average daily, how many different people utilize the facility?
Just for lunch or
Oh, for anything.
everything?
Just a general
Everything.
question,
The
no.
30
Probab-
different people wander through the room at different times during the course of
probably
the day.
between 50 and 75 to 100.
Yeah, that's
It
good.
depends on what's happening, like I said,
Yeah,
again.
snowy day, you're not gonna see anybody. A nice day with a good program.
right.
you're gonna
You'd
have
be
everybody.
surprised, they show up on a snowy day, you don't think they're going to.
Miss a lunch, huh?
Yeah, right.
And there are
Food.
people also that just come to our offices to discuss issues, to the outreach office, to my office. And we have tax aid going on now, so we have a bunch of people coming in for that. So it just depends on what the program is.
Very good.
But 50 to 75 is a decent number of people want, you know.
Oh, every
utilizing
day?
your surface. Yeah, every day.
Well, 4 days a week. You're open
4 days a week, yeah.
And then when we have birthday parties or a special goings-on, to celebration tomorrow, it could be up to 90 people just for lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we need the stove.
Let's hope the stove,
I mean, she'll put
It's
on a
okay
pot like
tomorrow.
this to boil potatoes, and it could take four hours just to get the, and she switches
Is
it to
that
the.
gas or electric?
it's
It's
electric.
electric.
And it's,
I can bring my grill up.
She does grill
She
during the
does.
summertime.
A good day.
and I think the stove is over 30 years old.
It is,
Yeah.
it's over
Yeah,
30
it's
years
probably
old.
shot.
Oh, it is?
You got the coil things?
No, they're actually the French, like they're covered,
Oh,
yeah.
And it's not just those, it's the ovens.
The ovens,
ovens
yeah,
is
one of the
bad, too.
ovens really is questionable every day, so.
Yeah, there's no real point in repairing that or trying to.
No, I had somebody come in probably about 3 years ago, because we always had issues with that, but he said he could change out the burner
The unit. yeah,
units,
The element.
right, the element, but he said the stove, he went, I don't know how long it'll last, I was like, okay. So I think
Would
it's
you be
kind
looking
of,
for electric again or gas or?
yeah,
gas?
just electric again, I
Yeah,
did
okay.
get a couple of quotes already.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for the presentation and thank you for doing a good job.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, Robin and Donna.
Don, is IT next?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Are you from IT?
No, that's assessing.
No.
Is everybody here for assessing? Are you still waiting for board members? You wanna take
Yeah,
this
we
since
can
Jeff?
take them and,
Huh?
He should be here. I think he thinks.
We're running a little,
time.
yeah, we're a little ahead of time.
Do you wanna do assessors now, and then you can go into IT when he gets here, after you're done?
okay, yeah, that'd be good. You don't have to stay here for so long. if you give your name and,
Oh, sure,
for Sherry.
sorry. Yeah, Deborah Chicarini, Director of Assessing. Nancy Landry, Chairman of the Board of Assessors.
I'm sorry, Nancy?
Landry, Landry.
Thank you.
You're on.
Okay. My one question is, we're just here to discuss the $18,000 and not the budget as a whole. Okay, because the Board of Assessors hasn't had a meeting recently for the board to look at the budget one more time before we come before the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Okay, so, I'd just like to fill you in a little bit on this request. This is an $18,000 one-time request, and it's for appraisal services of the 10 cell towers that we have in town. The assessors recently attended a workshop, a statewide workshop for assessors, and there was an appraisal company who put on a very good presentation about the valuation of cell towers and how much value the assessors are missing because of weak reporting. The building permit doesn't nearly cover the amount of taxable. Everything's taxable. Everything under the ground is taxable. Everything in those neat little cabinets, they're loaded with very expensive equipment. And we don't get a fair reporting of what that is. So consistently, this company, they're nationwide, primarily in the South, but after the workshop, we got some additional information from the FCC and different things about what is in Charlton. We do have 10, 2 may not be taxable. They're on the Mass Turnpike. The state trooper uses one tower and the Turnpike uses the other. Still not sure of the taxable, how the taxable entity would work there, but, the point is, we could probably be looking at 2 to 3 times what I'm taxing them now. And the taxable value now for all 8 that I've taxed is about $3 million in value. So we're looking at quite a bit more money. Towns like Hopkinton, Sandwich, Bellingham, I've talked to their assessors. They've used this organization and their appraisal team, and they stand by them. And the deal is, the reason why we're here and a little, pushing this, should I say, before May is they're here doing the towns now. They're starting work, and they're starting in April. So they would like to sign the contract in April. The Board of Assessors have already reviewed everything and looked through it, and so they could be done in 6 or 8 weeks, and we could realize that growth for fiscal '20. He also offered a 20% discount because his team's already going to be here. So he's in the state of Mass, particularly in the eastern part of the state. So they can, spread out and do all their measuring and listing and reporting and gathering of information. So a 20% discount is significant, I think. And as it is, we stand to make this $18,000 cost is going to be made up almost immediately. So I have no problems, endorsing this request. And
So when would they be coming, when would you want it to be done?
well, we requested an interdepartmental transfer. Okay, it's a one-time shot, so that it can be in place right before so we can feel free to sign a contract and have the funds appropriated,
And I
before
thought I
then.
just had to leave, but we've got.
Donna actually was gonna go, we were gonna reconsider and ask you if you would consider the reserve fund transfer so we could actually get
Oh.
going on it now
Okay,
versus waiting for the May.
Well, that was gonna be my next question, if you were gonna do that, so.
We'd rather do that now,
Yeah.
so she can get them started,
yeah.
if the board is,
So when you say things aren't reported, it's, naturally, the company's not gonna give you information that they don't want you to know, but It's just the forms that are filled out to apply for a permit to build a tower here doesn't.
That's one of the forms, yes, the entire permitting process. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, they list what they have to for the permit. But yet again, the assessors don't have privy or to the model number, make and model number, all those details that go into it. But above and beyond that, yearly, they're supposed to file a form of list with me. And we send them out every year as a courtesy, even though they're supposed to do it. And we don't hear back from them. And the biggest culprits, of course, is the antenna carriers, the carriers on there as well, our tax. Supposedly, the commissioner, state of Mass, taxes all the utilities in cell towers and things like that, but we know, the cell tower itself, the structure of the cell tower, whether it can handle a quad, group of antennas or two, or a Christmas tree with 8, they're getting very elaborate. So, the value, there's a ton of copper, there's a ton of wiring, air conditioning units, very sophisticated GPS
I was gonna say, so
systems.
under this contract, under your office, they can go into these different buildings, these 8 towers,
Yes.
inside the building and say, okay, there's a CPU
Yes,
over
they have
here, and there's a-"
information on each and every one of these,
Yeah.
either through,
And then they can value it, that's
yes,
what they bring to the table.
yes.
the ability to
And with the
value it.
proper depreciation tables and schedules and everything else that go with it. So, I mean, it is what it is, kind of. And we expect appeals, they're gonna be, what are you talking about? But how do you argue with an appraisal that details everything? And if they do want to appeal, or if they want to file, that they're well within their right to do that. And if they decide to appeal it further, this company does stand behind them and us as the board. So it wouldn't be necessary to hire a lawyer. And usually when you go to appellate, that involves hiring counsel and all that. But I feel confident that
So the
we'll-
18 grand covers
we'll do
all of
okay.
that.
Yes, yes, yeah, it's included. So
Mhm.
I'm pretty happy with this, how we stumbled upon this, actually, because I thought I was doing a pretty good job at what but it opened our eyes, and he opened the session by saying, yeah, none of you assessors are gonna drive by a cell tower and feel the same way about it. It's true, it's like billboards or anything else, there's an incredible amount of money, depending on where they're located, the rents, stuff like this, so,
Is there going to be any training for you that?
I'm
because
gonna be
assuming
with
this is a
him,
one-shot.
yeah, I will learn, I will
Yeah.
most definitely learn, when they're in town, I intend on going out, with them, and we'll have copies of everything, so I don't think, personally, I won't have to be trained, but we're paying them, and
Yeah.
I'll tag along.
No, because my assumption is that they're going to be replacing this equipment over time, and it becomes more and more valuable, and
Of course,
this is a one-shot deal
course.
for them,
right,
but will you be able to then go in 3 years and say, you know what, that's worth 50, not 10,
sure.
type of thing?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. Well, those are the values that, we take a look at along with the depreciation tables or a permit that may come along when they replace and upgrade, equipment that they have to go through the town, for anything like that as well. But it's pretty amazing. I guess there's a tower that was built maybe in the 40s and 50s out in Ware that was used for a radio tower. And, the owners would say, it's not worth anything, it's, 100 years old or whatever, it's still running. The copper everything's still there. So the depreciation doesn't really hold
That doesn't
true.
mean- Depreciation means nothing, that's an
It
accounting.
really, in this case, it's pretty amazing. So I got an education, and we ran with it, because we do have, actually, we thought we had, FCC has us down for 12, but 2 were canceled, and like I said, that leaves 10. 2 out of the 10 may or may not be taxable, so we'll,
So your
We'll do what we
guess
can.
is that it could go from 3 million to 6 or 7,
oh,
some
yes. Oh,
factor
yes.
better than
That's
what
what
it is.
that's what I've calculated, yeah. And we
Is-
could use it for the growth.
Is Donna trying to write this up now? Oh,
She's
okay.
the one about it, she'll be bringing it.
Well, I just had a question too. So on the 3 million, so that's the assessed value of all of them now? Okay, and you're thinking it's gonna go higher?
Yes.
And when they fill out that list, they give it a value, correct? Like
Oh,
every other
yes.
business does?
Oh,
Okay.
yes. They,
So-
they put their estimate of market value.
Okay.
Or, you know, their condition.
So this
or the
company
age.
is gonna go out
Yes,
and they know what they're looking at as
yes,
opposed
they
to.
absolutely
So when they
do.
don't send the form in, what do you do?
There's nothing I can do.
So you give them what, the year before's value?
However, if they appeal, right, less depreciation, whatever my
And we can't
schedule
go back,
says.
so if this comes from
Right.
3 million and it's now at 8 million.
Yeah.
You can't go back tax years and say it was
Correct.
under us, okay.
Correct, yeah.
But they could file an abatement in
They
future.
certainly could,
okay.
yes, I would expect that probably for fiscal '20.
So do you think that the overlay should have more?
I don't think in this case the overlay will be affected. I feel that confident in the appraisal work, you
Okay.
know. The fact that, what I've seen of their appraisal work across the country, you don't see a lot of the appeals winning. You don't even see them going that far because,
Okay,
like I
Okay.
said, it is what it is. And that equipment, how do you deny it? The price of copper,
Yeah.
high-end GPS, air conditioning systems, wiring, you know, and all the materials that even hold it in place underground and the guide wires that are up
and
there.
then every
So-
time they would do an upgrade, I imagine they gotta pull a permit, so you would know
Yes,
to go.
or if there's an antenna piggybacking,
Okay.
that also requires a permit. So, you know, we do our fair share of tracking, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
here locally,
Yeah.
when they pull a permit. We can't be everywhere.
Yeah, right.
But,
Just want to be sure I understood it right. So the revenue we're getting from the cell towers now is 3 million a year?
that,
No, that's the
that's.
assessed
That's what I wanted to
that's-
understand.
Yeah, yeah,
value.
sorry,
Okay.
sorry. I never know how you want me to present it in tax
Yeah.
dollars or value, but
No, that would
regardless,
be a
you
lot
guys can
more
do the
money.
math.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
All right, so we're getting, all right.
so
I just want to make sure I had the right number in my head.
Yeah. Well, I hope to come back
but it's still a
You
lot
know.
of, it'll be a lot
Yeah.
of new growth,
when we
so
have the growth.
Oh, it's
yeah.
still doubling
Yeah,
revenue.
no.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
it's definitely,
Well, it
you know,
might
in my
be a lot,
opinion,
but
it's
We'll
that's
see
the
what it comes
estimate.
out.
really a
but yeah.
no-brainer, especially with the discount that he's offered, so that's really nice.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay.
Well, before you go, you may want to know.
Yeah, no, I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving yet.
I have before me a reserve fund transfer for 18,000 for cell phone tower appraisals. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second,
A second? Do I hear no further discussion?
Quick question,
Yep.
what's our balance? 60-something, isn't it?
80,000.
80,000.
Hear no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposed, it's passed. That's down here, we gotta get the right place to sign it, we never do that, right?
You always do it.
You're all set?
Thank you very much.
And today's date is what, the
13th?
13th?
So Donna, we should scratch this off the line, right? Scratch this off the red line there.
You can, because I didn't include it in there, I just had removed it because I knew that it needed to be done.
Oh, thank you.
We're shuffling at the moment. Donna, which page is IT on?
It's in like the middle
Eight,
of the
eight.
general.
well, on this one, I don't know which one you're looking at. I printed it on that.
Oh, I've got my
Kind of go
own.
by the department number in the middle.
239, we're going by the 237.
Technology.
236, right?
Everybody all set? You're on, and again, give your name so Sherry can put in the notes.
Sorry, Deborah Ciccarini again, yeah, small town, switch it. I'm the chairman of the technology committee.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Sorrell. I'm the IT technician. So yes, I am new. Been here a few months. Still learning a lot of the aspects of this town. Just to give you a quick little background, going to all the different buildings, PD, fire, DPW, water sewer, library, town hall. Interesting, very interesting. There's a lot of different happenings, different departments, different buildings. I will say the network, the backbone of the network is great. I'm very impressed about the fiber that's been installed, previously installed. That's terrific. There's a lot of, they can branch off from that as far as interconnection with the buildings. I'm gonna ask for help, obviously, with Deborah, because she's been through this process before, and also with the town administrator, if possible. I was just handed this myself, and along with a couple other items. So,
Well, if you don't mind, if we could back up before we get into the
Absolutely.
numbers. Expand a little bit more too on your overview of equipment here in town. Fine, we've got a great backbone with a fiber network, but what about individual
sure,
departments and terminals and printers and the whole?
there's some obviously outdated equipment. There always is, no matter where you go. Usually the rule of thumb, the lifespan of IT hardware as far as systems, in production environments is 5 years. There are some that are older, there are some that are brand new. One of the biggest issues that I see when I initially start doing this, on the desktop level, for example, is operating system Windows 7. We want to get everybody to Windows 10 before the end of the year. The end of life for Windows 7 is January. And we also, very soon after that, want to get everyone who uses Microsoft Office, which is Word, Excel, all the whole suite, from 2010 to the version after that, 2016, because the end of life for 2010 is October 2020. So there's some licensing to do, and that's fairly easy. Where you run into some trouble sometimes is older software running on newer operating systems. So we're taking precautions and doing testing for that. There's still some hardware I haven't seen in this town. For example, in the fire department, I've had a brief overview. I've done a lot of work in PD, but I haven't done too much in the fire department. I've seen some in the highway and some in the water and sewer, but we've been mainly focusing on PD to get make sure the services are all set there, and also taking care of problems here, and we're just branching out, building the building, and going around and evaluating and upgrading as necessary.
Are we in fairly good shape for expanding or adding if we had to?
Sure. There's plenty of, I mean, everything can be done with money, but
Yeah.
we want to take what we can use that we already have and repurpose if necessary. Again, the server's more expensive and more crucial than desktops. We want to make sure that the backbone that runs on the equipment that runs these servers, the software that's on those servers, it's accessible and 24/7 uptime as much as possible. So those get a lot more attention than, all right, for example, someone can't print. Well, that's terrible. If nobody can print, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure the servers are in good shape, and we've been replacing some of those as we go. Since I've been here, I think we've done 2 or 3
Where are they located?
in every building.
Oh.
A majority are here, but there are some in every municipal building,
Yeah.
PD, fire, water, sewer, highway, and here.
So fire's the one you'd like to do some more work in?
I want to get more hands-on. They haven't had too many issues, so I haven't personally evaluated too much there. We're slowly getting into that now. That's what I've been doing on weekends with Ken Hahn, who's your outsourced contractor. He's very knowledgeable about the systems, and he's showing me why and how things are connected within the town.
Good.
Things like our firewalls and filters are all up to snuff?
Yes. We're putting in new antivirus servers. We put in new spam filtering on the mail. They constantly get updated as far as definitions and updates for the actual appliances, sometimes hourly. The servers themselves are actually new for those two pieces of appliance.
Thank you.
I can tell you that Jeff started kind of late in the game, so I kind of had worked on the budget before you even got here, because you've been here, what, since December, mid-December?
Yeah, December.
And I can personally tell you that there's a big difference on having someone here
Yeah.
than not here. It's been huge. We had a crash that happened in November with Vadar software, and it took me 2 months to find the needle in the haystack of where it was out of balance because it had crashed during a posting and was restored without my knowledge to 2 weeks before. So it was like learning how to do communications, but now having someone here, that person knows the people here and what's going on. It's so much better.
And I'm starting obviously with the smaller items that Ken is offhanding to me and getting larger and more complex jobs getting done for the town. One of the main aspects to, go with what Dawn is saying is I prevent the small snowball from becoming the big one going downhill because I can catch that and remediate it before something bad happens.
Where are our servers backed up?
Well, most of them are virtual servers, and they're backed up, there's in-house, and I believe Ken does some off-site storage with those as well.
So we've got an access to our info.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Catastrophic.
Which is a couple of things that we talked about with different packages that people wanted to implement in the town, but wanted to take hold of our data, and that was not acceptable at all. Because if they go belly up, then where's our information?
Yeah, we have backups it's crucial, and we have redundancy. But aside from everything, I just want to thank Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, 20 years of support for the technology, in this building, in all the buildings. I don't think we'd be where we are today with the efficiencies in most departments, up and running. Finance, having a somewhat of a seamless system here with our modules with Vadar, and, you need a good backbone, and we appreciate your support every year in and year out. Whatever we need, you've always been very supportive. And as you know, we still have, Micronet is supporting, the backbone, but to have Jeff here, it's been amazing, a world of difference. And he instantly responds to everything.
And I live local, so I'm
Yeah.
15 minutes away when
Yeah.
PD calls me if there's something
Yeah.
wrong with dispatch.
It's been great.
I'm available.
Yeah, it was ironic, my first introduction to you, you were planning board, trying to get the printer up and running, and she was just like, thank you for being here. Right, so I saw it already, okay, how people appreciate you.
Thank you.
So as far as the individual numbers go, I think I'll defer to Robin. She's really puts our budget together for us and approves it.
So again, I will reiterate what they're saying about thanking you for the support in technology, and it's because you recognize how important it is for the functions here. You will see again, when I talked about the pay equity with Deb, she was reclassified, so there is a pay increase, and rightly so. And we appreciate the years of work that she's done for us and the level of competency that she has. So there's just, when you come down to the bottom of the line of the budget, there's about a $5,000 increase.
Yeah, it's
But,
less than
you'll
two and a
see that
half,
we're-
so.
Excuse me?
It's less than 2.5, so.
Yeah. So, what you'll see is that we're also moving around technology and bringing it back together. So we've gone and sought out any more technology that's in individual departments, and we're still trying to consolidate that so that we have a good understanding. We've got Jeff to kind of oversee it. He'll be able to do more of the work with helping the departments if they want to change their software. So he's gonna be integral in looking at some of the licenses, hardware, and technologies as we're going forward. I think we're pretty close. We did make a modest increase into the technology hardware. And you you wanna remember, there's two separate $25,000 investments for hardware. So we carry 25,000, what we're asking to do is to carry the 25,000 here in the budget. And we were carrying 25,000, but you, at the last meeting, I believe you asked us to increase that, which we have to, I think it was 75,000 in this budget that we increased it. So we have about 100,000 for hardware. We're gonna be, and between all of the departments, police, fire here, all our financial packages, certainly that's trying to keep things rotating. We're trying not to have, need to replace a lot of equipment all at the same time so that we can rotate out. And that's been part of our plan for the last 13 years that I've been here. We try and rotate out. So unless you have any questions.
I'm just curious if a score of 10 was the ultimate state of the art, everything is hunky-dory, what score would you give us today?
Unless I had a total grasp of everything, which I don't, because I'm still new, and there's still some aspects that I'm learning and discovering. It's hard to say, but from what I've seen, solid 7.5. I mean, 10 is just unachievable, because if something comes out new every day, you can't do it. And, yeah, easily 7.5, I would say at least. And you would think that maybe 70%, that's a C, but in tech, 7.5 is good.
And do remember that we're in that shift, and we've talked about that, from going from a small town where we could pretty much do our ledger books to needing to really up our ante with having systems that can speak to each other, that we can do things more online, especially for the financials. Donna's been working with the department, so as you know, so that they can start inputting, so she's not doing the same thing. It was fine when there was a small amount of bills payable for the accountant to sit there and re-input that. We're too big for that now, and it just takes a lot of manpower, so investing in the technology has been extremely important for us.
I was basically looking for a baseline, all right? So that a year from today, when I ask you that question, I'm hoping to hear 8.2 or 8.7.
Sure. And it's a continual process that never stops. It'll never, it's a continual process. It's always weeding out the old, implementing the new. Basically, my model comes to, if it's broke, I fix it. If we need it, I build it. So it's interesting, the amount of hardware you have. To be honest, for a small town, I was surprised. There's quite a bit.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, sorry, Jeff, Bill Borowski, very quick question for you.
Sure.
I know it's only been a few months, but following up kind of with what Mr. Tomas was saying, what do you see as the biggest deficiency that you'd like to concentrate on? Or is it still too early for this?
I think it's still too early, but the core is there. That 10 gig fiber backbone that connects all the buildings, that's key, that's huge. You can run anything off of that.
Excellent. So there's nothing you've seen that pops out to you that says, this has to be fixed tomorrow, type of thing? Be honest.
The one thing that worries me, as far as the tech at this early level, is to make sure we update our OS licensing to be compliant before Microsoft end-of-life support.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I appreciate your time and effort, and thank you for your
Thank you.
work.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, we'll do the same stuff.
Water and sewer's next, if you're ready.
Yeah, we're running.
You want to just go out and hang in the hall for 10 minutes?
Get some sun. I do have one commissioner who's on his way.
Yeah, I was gonna bring a magnifying glass.
Are we waiting for someone, or you're all set?
I do have a commissioner on the way, but if you want to start, we can just go over it generally and see if you have any questions.
You all set?
Yeah. Again, if you'd give her a name, so.
Sure.
For the record.
My name is Pete Boria. I am the Water and Sewer Superintendent.
What number?
I'm trying to find it.
Oh, 199?
No. I'll find it later. Okay. You're up.
Okay. All right. So tonight I'm here to talk on both the water and sewer enterprise fund budgets. They are separate because they're separately funded. I'm not sure which one you want to start with.
We'll start with water, it's
Okay.
fine.
Water it is. So if you look, the main difference between both of these budgets from last year, FY19, is that we took all three salaries and associated personnel-related expenses for our three employees, myself and the two others, added them together and split them evenly between both departments. Last year it was done differently because my position was funded from funds from ExxonMobil for a water superintendent specifically. So my position was fully funded from the water budget, and the other two positions were funded from the sewer budget. This year, in talking to Donna and Robin, we decided to combine the three, both salaries and payroll-related expenses, split them down the middle, and split them between both sewer and water. So if you look at the water budget, you'll see that's why there's a little bit of change in salaries and mostly payroll-related expenses going from FY19 to FY20. Other than that, all of the remaining expenses for the department, which are very minimal because we don't operate our water system at this time, the town of Southbridge does. Our operating expenses on an annual basis are very, very low. We carry some costs for expenses that I don't believe we've touched yet this year. We carry some costs for legal and engineering that we haven't touched, so the only thing that we do really use is the indirect costs that are paid to the town. We have no debt being paid because the betterments were paid off as part of the ExxonMobil settlement, and we carry a $50,000 line item for capital replacement items unknown. So if there's a catastrophic break in the line or any major repairs that need to be done to the water system, we can at least fund that repair immediately and not have to call a special town meeting or go to any reserve funds to fix it. If you look at the revenue side, we are balanced by using funds from the town of Southbridge that we get as part of our intermunicipal agreement. We are also using the $50,000 from our capital receipts reserve for appropriation. There was a little bit of funding left in the receipt reserve for appropriation for the superintendent position, and we are balancing with $121,000 in change from retained earnings, which I believe our balance in retained earnings was approximately $150,000. So there's enough there to fund that. It is a little tighter than we want it to be, tighter than I want it to be. But as I said, if you look at the expenses, those $48,000 for, say, all of the operating cost expenses, I believe as of today, the only portion that we've expended are the indirect costs. So of that $48,000, there's $38,000 that should be coming back next year, again, to replenish the retained earnings.
So you're saying that Southbridge pretty much runs the water system, so it doesn't require a whole lot of you.
Southbridge operates
What was
it.
the rationale in taking the salaries and just going 50-50 rather than saying you spend 2/3 and 1/3?
Because for right now, with all of the construction projects that are going on, and again, even though we don't operate the system, we still field phone calls, we still process information, we still go to meetings, there's still quite a bit of resources that we're using for water. So 50/50 for right now, I think is a fair disbursement for both. And again, I think as things change, that can be it's not fixed year to year. So if next year it looks different, then we can go ahead and adjust that and go 60/40, or however it works out for what we see coming up the following year. They're already early.
I'm usually late. The only time I'm early, you're
Sorry,
ahead of
Ron,
me.
we were counting on that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So we're just generally, we went over the preliminary water budget.
How are we looking there? Fine?
I just gave a rundown of what we have and just started entertaining questions.
How are we doing on the new water lines?
The water lines are going well.
Are we
They're-
still working on them right now, or is it off for the winter?
No, it was put off for the winter. We're gonna start construction again on a portion of the line, probably next week, I believe, there's gonna be one crew starting. And then the beginning of April, once April 1st comes around and a little more comfortable that we might not get some heavy snow, you'll see a lot more activity start up again.
Now, where you working now, or where would you be working?
They're gonna start on L. Stevens Road next week. And then once April 1st rolls around, probably start on Old Worcester Road again, so that Old Worcester Road will be closed again. And they'll continue work up on the Berry Corner project for the Casella water line, so that'll be taking place as well.
When do you think the lines will be done, roughly?
Most of the Berry Corner Road water lines are in. They have a few more service connections to put in from the water main to the properties, to the property lines, and then they'll continue to work throughout the summer to do the private property, the connections. So they should be off the road on Berry Corner Road by the end of the spring and just doing private property work. They, hopefully, everything's settled well and they'll be able to repave Berry Corner, H-Foot Road, what they're doing in Eleanor Lane by the end of this construction season. As far as the school loop, the plan is to have all of the water main in, not necessarily the service connections, by the end of this construction season. So that means finishing up Old Worcester Road to Route 20, going down Morton Station Road, completing the loop through both schools, Heritage and the middle school, and then heading back up to North Main Street on Mugget Hill Road, getting Bay Path and Old Mugget Hill Road by the end of this construction season. So, seems aggressive, but I was told again last week that that is the plan, and they think they're gonna be able to do that.
If they've got the crews, you can do it.
Cruising time, so. And weather cooperation, not too much
And the weather,
ledge.
yeah.
There's a few
It rained last week.
components in there. So that's the plan for the water lines.
Any other questions on water? No, we'll
If I
move
may
on.
just make a point is that one of the goals for this summer is to try to, or this fall, is to try to have the Masonic home be able to be fully connected and turned on, because that will help the water quality because of the amount of water that they use. So that's certainly in our sights. Also, the sooner we can get the water to Bay Path, the better off everybody would be, and also the two other schools, but especially Bay Path. So it's been a long haul, and it's, some of the problems have been self-inflicted, but again, we're getting there.
Just a quick question, though. If we get the water lines into the Masonic home, will the buffer zone around their wells be not a problem anymore?
Yes, that well should be, that well will be taken offline as a public water supply well, and they're gonna keep it to sustain their fire suppression system only.
Yeah. All right.
So that protective radius should go away when it's not a public water supply well anymore.
Okay, thank you. Off to sewer.
Before we, I guess
Go-
it
go on,
doesn't.
go right ahead.
I guess it doesn't matter, Pete, because I've got the same question for both, so go ahead with sewer.
Go ahead with sewer?
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as sewer goes, you're probably not gonna see much changes from FY '19 to FY '20, again, other than the salaries and the payroll-related expenses. And those changes are still surprisingly within about 10%. So by cutting it 50/50, it didn't really make that big of a change. So As far as our annual operating costs, all of those items have been pretty much level funded, except for the I&I, which changed because it's based on last year's operating budget, which was reduced from the previous year's operating budget. So, our indirect expenses. Our indirect expenses decreased a little bit from year to year. Other than that, you have our debt service, which is fixed for the next few years, and that should be paid off. And as far as sewer, as far as revenues go, we are able to self-balance without using any retained earnings by using our user fees and surcharges to cover pretty much our operating expenses. And then we have privilege fees, betterments, and then funding from the general fund that pretty much offsets our debt. So if you take the debt and you see that that's offset by those three components, we are able to self-fund our budget and operate based on what we collect for user fees and surcharges, so.
How's the invoicing system?
I'm sorry?
The invoicing system between Southbridge and us and the old meters, the new meters? I remember
It's-
that was a topic.
It was, I think that's been cleared up. It seems to be
I know
going.
Donnie said that over time.
It
yes,
seems to be going fairly well. I know there's not as much of a lag time as there has been in the past. We read bills the first week, say we bill January, February, March, we go read our meters, say April 4th or 5th, get those read. We have to wait for Southbridge to get us their meter reads, because they have to read a lot more meters, and they have to make sure they're correct. So we get their information probably the 3rd or 4th week in April. Takes us 3 or 4 days to input that. We work with the collector and the assessors. We input that information. We send it off to Globe Billing. They print the invoices and mail them for us. And they've been out, I think this last billing cycle, we were 4 weeks from the end of the cycle, maybe 4.5 before the bills went out. So I don't see a way we could do it any quicker, because we have to wait for Southbridge's information. If we were reading all the meters and had that type of control, we could get them out probably within 2 weeks from the end of the billing cycle, but for now and what we have and how it's working, I think it's working fairly well. And it's not, I don't see really anything that we could do differently to improve it.
So the old problem with water and sewer, we've pretty much taken care of. Billings, I mean.
So we don't bill for water because we don't operate it, Southbridge does. So as far as sewer goes, yes, I comfortably say that most of those problems have been taken care of and resolved.
If I may, Peter's being a little bit modest here. Since we've had a change in administration, the lag time between the reading and the billing has improved dramatically. In fact, a couple of years ago, we actually only billed 3 quarters in 1 year rather than 4 quarters. Again, thanks to Mr. Boria here and also the efficiency of Sue down at the treatment plant. They've done wonders as far as that goes, so.
Yeah, I appreciate the billing, the increase in billing and then straightening it out and everything, that's very good.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well. Again, I think a lot of the heavy lifting was done before I came. I was able to just take it and go from there, so,
You bill quarterly, correct?
yes.
Yeah. And do you do demands?
No, the collector's office does,
Yeah.
luckily. We bill it and we're done,
And you hand it off?
yes. And they take it, I believe the collector is the one who issues the demands and does all that, not us.
Any other questions on sewer or water?
I have some points if.
Go right ahead.
I guess this may be a little personal, but because I've been here as long as I have, again, I'm not pleased with the cost of the indirect charge that's put on us here. Maybe 3 years ago and prior to that, there was a formula for determining the indirect cost. And that formula was heavily based on debt. Well, now that we have little or no debt, the formula's changed. We didn't change it. Upstairs changed it. So we get a similar amount of indirect, which I think totals close to $90,000. And also, the indirect cost is based on our budget, not on our actual cost of operations. And I'd like to see that that calculation revised to where, rather than take our budget numbers, which, not intentionally, but at times, we end up turning back $250,000, $300,000, $350,000. We're paying indirect costs on money we turn back. So, one of the things we'd like to see done, or at least I would like to see done, the consideration of having that calculation formulated on what is spent rather than what is projected. And that's what we're dealing with.
Donna, do you work on that, or?
Yep, and I used the same formula Keith had from the treasurer's office, so I had not changed it. I had detail actually from the treasurer's side that I worked with the same. And it's very standard to use numbers from prior to calculate indirect. Not to be confused with direct costs, those are actually actual costs that we have. Indirect would be
He'd like,
myself or the assessors
Salary,
or the collectors,
yeah.
people that don't have direct hours that you can attribute
Yeah.
to doing something. And so you have to do a calculation on that, and the numbers before that it's based on budget in the prior years, actually, so you have a set number that you can actually use because it's already happened. And that's pretty standard throughout the state.
The other thing is that this has come up before, because I know it's been one of Mr. Lemansky's pet peeves
Forever.
for years.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we had looked at previously with the finance committee was as it's based on the whole budget, and it's a percentage of the budget, the other departments of the budget also turn back money. So in order to do what Mr. Lemansky is recommending, if we did that with just the water sewer, then they would be getting an advantage that the rest of the general budget did not get, because we wouldn't be recalculating and pulling out. So if we'd have $1 million in free cash at the end of the year in the general budget, we would have to also use those numbers to pull out, which could actually make the water sewer indirect costs go up, because we may have less uses in the department. So their percentage in comparison to what the other departments turn back actually could go up. We haven't done that calculation, but if you'd like us to do that calculation, we certainly could. But I don't think you could do water sewer by using their actual numbers, and then not take the actual numbers and find that percentage based on all of the budget. So you'd have to do it both ways. So I think that was when we looked at that we decided that this was the most fairest and best way.
If I may, a couple things. As far as I know, there are very few departments that pay indirect back to the town. I think we may be one of the only ones. I can't say that for sure, okay, but,
Enterprise funds would be the only ones.
okay.
Makes sense.
So,
They're the only ones allowed by law.
thank you. And I also know, and this was before Donna came, is the change took place during Keith, because I remember specifically 5, 6 years ago, Keith had laid out the formula. In fact, if, Mr. Spiewak's usually here, isn't he?
he's not in today.
No, he's usually here, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, again, and I remember Joe and I were on the town floor, we were making the point that it was, that the old formula, all right, and shame on me for not going through the boxes to find it, but maybe I will before it's too late,
I can send that to you.
is,
Excuse me,
like,
would you send that,
Yes.
the old and the new, so that I could sit there
I
and,
could send the one he's referring to from Keith. I'll
Yeah.
send that to you.
and that was
but the
based on
current
debt.
one also, I'd like
That
to
was
see.
based on debt, and,
The current one you have,
Is it? Where is it?
it's attached to what I handed
Oh,
out.
okay, all right, sorry.
And it's
Thank
the
you.
center box that's indirect cost. And just keep in mind too, this has to pass the muster with DOR. And this, I was in class on Tuesday, and this is the recommended formula.
this year.
This year.
Permanently is the recommended
Well,
formula.
yeah, it is recommended, what other towns do, I mean, we hear all these little cliches. So if I may, Donna, you're saying is what's printed on here is what has been in place for years and years and years?
Since I've been
Oh,
here,
okay,
and the
no.
stuff I took from Keith.
I don't, I'm not disputing that. But what had transpired with Keith in years past was a different formula than this. So I really think it needs to be looked at because, yeah, again, this isn't taxpayer money that we've got here in this budget. These are sewer users. We don't really use any of the taxpayers' money here. So this, what do we got, 650 users tops? So that's what I'm here fighting for, is again, to make things as fair and as reasonable and as accountable as possible. So, so we'll wait for that other information to come in, and if, again, I ask you to please take a hard look at that. The other point that I want to make here is that they have a new word for it, the OPEB contribution. Before, I think, I believe it may have been called, was it called pension before, Peter?
I'm not sure what it was called
OPEB
before.
is other post-employment benefits. It's different than pension.
But so it's different than pension?
Correct.
Okay. And where is pension on our budget?
On the direct costs, well, I'm not looking on the last sheet, but the direct costs, it's pension, Worcester Regional Retirement System.
Donna, what
Would be
line
under
item is that?
payroll-related expenses.
Second line down.
What number?
Worcester County.
That's actually calculated by Worcester Regional Retirement.
Correct.
That's
correct.
pension.
Okay, I'm sorry about these glasses.
Yeah, we're different. We're line 15. It's under payroll-related expenses.
Okay, thank you.
If you're on sewer.
Right. So that's when you go to sewer, and then when we go to water, and you put the two of them together.
Line 15 again,
Line 15, and what's that total, Peter?
$122.
That's all it is for water?
Because it lags a year?
Worcester Regional Retirement for water would have only picked up you for a portion of last year, so it's assessed on January 1st of last year was what,
And with a 50-50 split, that'll change.
Yes.
now, OPEB is a different
Next year.
category. That's calculated in your actuarial study as an unfunded liability. And what I had done, and I can hand this out, I did a 10-year funding mechanism on water and sewer, since they're not that old. I'd like to do the general fund in 10 years, but that ain't.
We have it. We have it. No, is this different?
Yeah, this is mine, I don't know, this is my calculation of. So the actuary goes through and they do the calculation of how much water and sewer is unfunded for OPEB, other post-employment benefits. And so that's the number that's at the top. That's based on future health insurance, is other post-employment benefits. And then I just took what's been previously paid for this year, and I divided it out by the 9 remaining years that since I've been here trying to make a fully funded. I said in 10 years, you should be able to fully fund it.
It just makes sense, Peter, is that the pension is only at 69 versus prior 2 years.
It's not sent by us, so I don't know if it makes sense, but I'm not sure we have a say.
Yeah, if I may, Donna, 1 second here on the, if we can go back to the Worcester Regional Retirement. You have a set, or at least what's listed here on the, I'm looking at the water, at the sewer side, for 6,900. In the prior 2 years, it was 14,800 and then 17,700. Why the drastic drop?
It could be,
We have more payroll than we had last year.
because it's delayed in time, so this was actually, I believe it's January 1st of the prior year. Worcester Regional does the calculation and the actuarial study, and then they split it up when they give us the assessment in February, which is gonna be for July, so it's almost like a year and a half behind. So it could have been from other people that ran through payroll. I don't know from not being here in those years. I just know this was the first time I'm seeing water at all,
Yep.
being picked up.
Do you have Kevin Pagels on payroll?
Yeah.
That could have bumped it up.
It was close
those
to yours,
previous
because
years.
Kevin was only there for half a year.
But there was a lag between him and myself, wasn't there? 6 months or so?
Maybe so, yeah, it's correct, correct. If I may, through the chair to Donna. Donna, on the OPEB, is that where is that where the retirement health insurance cost is?
Not retirement, health insurance cost is for retirees, yes. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Retirees' health insurance cost?
Yeah, so
For
if someone's
future.
retired, we pay a portion of their health insurance.
Correct.
Okay.
For future, they
For-
project it out.
For future, okay. And as far as the health insurance of our employees, that's listed, that would be line 16, the group
Correct.
health
group
insurance, which
So
is,
that's active employees and
Right.
could be retirees, that's what I'm getting billed now. This is
Okay.
the fund, OPEB is the fund, the piece that they project in the future that you haven't put money aside for.
right, right. And I think I may have asked this question before, is as far as the Worcester County Retirement Fund, what kind of obligation do we have, outstanding obligation do we have to them? As far as the projection of
You mean an
funds
unfunded
needed for
liability?
retirement?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Unfunded liability?
Yeah,
They have a certain year in which they have to be fully funded. It's, last I heard it was like 2028.
It's a ways away.
Yeah.
but what's the number?
Oh,
That's the actual assessment they're giving us. They just give it to us as an assessment every year,
All right.
how much you have to fund.
This is an observation, again, observation as a taxpayer, as a businessman, is presently the policy in town is when an employee gets hired, the town pays 80% of their insurance, their health insurance. 80%. Out in, and again, you know, people love to use the term other towns. Other employers throughout the state, nobody pays 80%. It's way too high. Way too high. I'm saying to the board here is that, you know, consideration needs to be made, and I'm not saying take current employees and saying, fine, just went from 80 to 50, like most of America or less. I'm saying is at least for new hirees, that you reconsider that policy. And I mean, obviously, I think it's gotta come from the selectmen, but maybe from a recommendation from this board to them and saying, look, you know, we're gonna be like General Motors 15 years ago. They had to claim bankruptcy because they were offering these incredible benefits to retirees. I'm not trying to punish anybody, but I'm just trying to be realistic. I think that definitely needs to be a consideration. And the other point I wanted to make.
Yeah, I'll consider that one too, but as an employer that pays 100%, I'd love for you to get down to 80.
Well, right, but you know how rare you
Every
are?
industry is different, I know.
You,
Every
yeah,
industry is
you're
different.
extremely rare, and the thing is, I guess the employees should be thankful. And the other thing is, as far as pension goes, most of America is on the 401K plan. They're not, you know, they're not, we'll provide your pension for you.
The difference is the 401Ks are also on paying social security, and if town employees are not allowed to pay in social security,
Okay,
so
right,
they
yeah, yeah.
replaced it with pension plans.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're getting a little off topic of the
No,
budget.
well,
so-
well, again, it is part of the budget. I agree with you. It's off, but it's still in because it is part of it. And I think, I'm making the call as consideration needs to be given to those things as well as the.
Yeah,
the-
that's something that should
the
come up in contract
indirect amount.
negotiations, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions on water or sewer?
Aren't you glad we started early?
You were early.
That's right.
I do know that you're running 5 minutes past, and if the chief would be willing to just defer just a little bit more. Pete, do you want to talk to them about your article?
Warrant articles? Sure, if
Oh,
they have
okay.
time, or if they're gonna discuss it another time, I can come back. It's up to them.
No, now's a good time.
No.
You got a minute, Chief? Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna be asking for interdepartmental transfer to possibly do a sewer treatment plant upgrade to fix our alkalinity adjustment at the plant. We have money set aside in our stabilization account that we can fund it from. We just have to do the transfer. The cost of the project, I'm not sure of yet. I've been told it's between $300,000 to $400,000. The commission hasn't approved it yet. It's very preliminary. Hopefully, we'll have everything together and ready to go by town meeting. But as I said, I believe we have maybe just about $1 million, or maybe just a little bit more than $1 million in our stabilization account, and we're still carrying about $500,000 in our retained earnings. So, in talking to Veolia, our operator, they see this as a very important upgrade that needs to be done and help them more efficiently operate the plant. And we've had a headworks analysis study done last year by Ty and Bond, and they said alkalinity is one of the major components that has caused some of our NIPD's permit exceedances in the previous year. So it's definitely something we want to try and get under control and make it work better. Veolia is currently working on coming up with some estimates for that upgrade, and as we get that information, I'm going to be sharing it with the commission, with the Board of Selectmen, and with yourselves on what it is and what it's going to cost to take place.
And this is an existing plant?
This is our existing wastewater treatment plant, yes.
So you're being a little proactive about this. There's no broken alkalinity, or is it just not working efficiently?
There was a previous alkalinity adjustment system that the DEP required us to remove because they didn't like the way it was set up and how it was maintained or working, so that's been removed. Currently, to control alkalinity, they take bags of, I don't know if it's sodium bicarbonate or what it is, and they dump it directly into the headworks building themselves during the day. And because we're only staffed, full-time during the day, during the week, and part-time on the weekends, it's not a consistent way or a very efficient way to control the alkalinity. So it's something we definitely need to get taken care of and the improvement to be made. So luckily, we have the funding set aside that we can hopefully self-fund and get that improvement done. So again, as I know more, I'll have more information to share that'll better describe that.
Okay. Any other questions?
And then if the upgrade is done, will you need that sodium bicarbonate that you have to pay for?
Yes, that'll still continue under our operating budget that we can currently pay for, that we're currently using. It'll just be, and they'll be delivered differently.
Okay.
But there shouldn't be, I don't believe there's gonna be an additional operational cost after the new system is installed.
So in essence, Peter, that's really just a transfer of money from already within our accounts.
Correct, so that'll be in the interdepartmental transfer warrant article.
I know for myself, I wouldn't want to spend any money on any processes down there until the EPA comes back with our permit that's already 2 years late, because you don't know what they're gonna come back. It seems like, what's it gonna be this year? Is it gonna be ammonia? That's their pet peeve, is it gonna be nitrogen? And when they come back with, these are the new numbers, then we have to change our concentration on exactly what we're doing and where we're doing it.
Okay. Any other questions?
There was one more article we're putting forward.
Oh, one more, go ahead.
So, and that is for the possible purchase of property near Buffinville Dam for a public water supply well. We've identified a parcel. We've spent the last year doing some due diligence and exploratory work, drilling some test wells, identifying what's there. We found a second parcel that abuts it that gets us access directly to Gale Road. So we have both parcels under agreement right now with the property owners. We have a little bit more due diligence to do. They're gonna be out there next week doing some more borings to identify what's actually there for the rest of the property. Once we get that work done, we can truly identify if we wanna purchase the property and move forward with that. And we have an article, space holder article with Robin on that to purchase those 2 parcels at town meeting, so
Do we have a price?
we do. One parcel is approximately $100,000 for 20 acres, and the second parcel is $108,000 for 8 acres.
Peter, could you share where that funding's gonna come from?
Sure, so there's 2 possibilities for that funding. One would be, we have a receipts reserve for appropriation for water capital improvements from the ExxonMobil settlement, and that has $1.5 million in it. We would possibly take it from there. The other one is a receipt reserve for appropriation from the ExxonMobil settlement that is set aside for the general fund that has $2.68 million that we were gonna talk to the selectmen about in the future, about possibly taking from there.
Which is the money we're gonna be using for the public safety building.
Possibly.
The public safety building that the voters haven't approved yet? That one? Is that the one we're talking about?
So,
Yeah.
Where's
okay.
the closest water line tie-in to that parcel? to those
it
two
will
parcels?
be the part of the school loop that's being installed down by Heritage School. So to get there, we'll have to install approximately 3 miles of water line. So it's not remotely close, but it is, it has been identified as a decent start to supply ourselves with our own water. So whether or not we buy it and develop it immediately, or buy it and sit on it, we know, the information we have right now shows it has good potential for a public water supply well. So it seems whether or not we develop it right away, it's something we should, I think it's something we should invest in, so that it's there. If we don't use it right away, 5, 10, 15 years, who knows what's gonna change by then. At least then, that it'll be sitting there and it can be used. And if it's not, it's a nice piece of property down by Buffinville, and it's always saleable in the future as well if the town decides that they don't need it. But before someone takes that 8-acre parcel that has frontage on Gale Road and builds a house on it, and it's no longer available for us to use, I think it's important, again, to kind of maybe look ahead a little bit and make that investment now while the property is available.
Does your initial analysis right now say it could supply the current water system that you're building over the next year or 2?
No, unfortunately.
There is an analysis, and the analysis is no, that amount's not there. But I will say this, is within the next 2 to 3 months, they're gonna be doing more investigating work, which will include this other parcel, which may lead to the possibility of that being there. In the way that the purchase and sale agreements have been put in place is there's extensions involved, and if we exercise the extension, I believe there's gotta be some non-refundable money that's gotta be put up. But it's, again, it's a cautious way of doing it, is to where, you know, we can change our mind.
No,
But
I
it's
get
based
the
on
part-
results.
I get the part, Rob, where you're buying it ahead of time and protecting it and preserving it, but it's not enough to do even what we're gonna be finished. When we finish our current water system, it won't supply that, so it's just a piece.
Not with the safety factor required by DEP.
So it's just, it's a piece. So
It's
you're
a
building piece.
solid piece that would let us operate more than half of the system ourselves, instead of having to purchase the entire system water from
That's what I
some.
was wondering about. what-
So,
what the
what how the engineer described it is, it's not enough to provide your whole system, but it's a great start of good, clean water, because it's a gravel pack well, so you can identify where that's getting recharged from. And to use that as the basis for your system, and then from there, you look for other areas of town where you might be able to drill smaller, lower capacity wells to offset that and continue to grow the system, so that sooner or later, we can be fully self-supportive of what we have.
And that's not uncommon that towns will have multiple wells.
Yeah. Is this land for sale now, or is it?
It is.
It is.
So the first parcel was not. I approached the homeowner because I identified it as a parcel that might meet the requirements to site the well. And that homeowner was willing to work with us and sign sign an agreement with us to sell it to us if it pans out to,
So that's the smaller parcel?
that's the 20-acre parcel.
Okay.
And that one did not have access from Gale Road, so we had to get an access agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to get to that parcel.
Okay.
So the second parcel we found for sale as a buildable lot. It has 100 feet of frontage, a little bit of a narrow entryway, and then it opens up to approximately 8 acres. That's the parcel that's for $108,000.
Okay.
And that parcel, we just got under agreement this past week. So it's an important piece to get us access to Gale Road. So the elevation of that property is also higher. So if the wells we develop, where we're developing wells are kind of on higher points of the original parcel, and because it's on Buffinville and because the Army Corps can control the elevation of the pond, of the lake, some of the rest of the property is under the flood inundation zone, they call it, the flood inundation level, so the ground will be underwater. This second parcel is much higher. So if we have to do any type of filtration or pump system or anything like that, we can do it on that secondary parcel before it goes out to Gale Road and be self-sufficient with property we own. So both parcels together work really well for what we're planning.
Sounds good.
And
Does that mean the well will have to go deeper because we're on a higher elevation?
yes, but again, it's a gravel pack well. They call it a gravel pack well, so you only drill down the bedrock, and bedrock's about 145 feet there. So it's not like drilling the bedrock well where you might be 600 feet deep, getting water from who knows where.
Yeah.
This is, you drill down the bedrock, you try and find a layer of good coarse gravel that the water can flow through. And that way there, the geologist can identify where that level is, what the material looks like between the surface and there, and because all that water recharges from the surface, and they can determine where that water's coming from and what we need for a protective radius and all that stuff.
Okay.
So,
Any other warrant articles?
I'm sorry?
Any other warrant articles?
No, not at this time. Nope. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks.
I sent this to everybody, but if you don't have it, you may have another copy. Fire department, I got it.
You did send it.
I got-
This you got?
I'm sure
Yeah.
Connie gets it for us.
Yeah, we'll see what she's got, and then,
Thank you.
don't really want to spill that. Thank you.
More red printed, what's that?
Kind of notes myself of where she
Wish I could read it. If they made it small on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks so much bigger on my screen.
Wheat font.
Although with my new glasses, I can actually read it myself.
Oh, it's got numbers on it.
Yeah. You go over 6?
6, 7, max.
Okay.
Yeah. I have new eyes and I can't read it.
So this is the same total budget we had, you gave us last week or the week before? Yeah, okay. So that matches this one, all right. Okay, you're up, chief.
Good evening.
Oh, you give the names too. Oh, you got it, okay.
So I have a couple of things with regards to the budget, and it's only just to kind of make you aware of. What we have for salary in there will be affected at some point during the fiscal year contractually. We have 4 or 5 members that are getting their paramedic certification, and with that is a 10% increase. Really, which comes to about $32,000. They're staggered as to when they'll get it, but they are anticipated to get it.
This being 2020 year?
Yeah.
Is that something they get, chief, because you need it, or they're just working for it? I mean,
Always better to have paramedics in town than to have basic EMTs in town.
okay.
Paramedics can do a lot more and administer drugs, EKGs, and that's where you want to be as a service. You want to be at the paramedic level, only because you're providing the most care that you possibly could.
Okay. But-
It's not a requirement for our individuals, but we do encourage it, and within it, they are, through the contract, they are reimbursed at that rate.
With a salary increase. So when you said 5 are doing this now?
Right.
Does that, it sounds like that'll give you at least one for every vehicle? Or
I
with
will
your shifting-
have, paramedic-wise, I will be at 3 a shift, so there'll always be an available paramedic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a requirement, this is a nice to have.
It's a,
Okay.
beyond a nice to have.
I'm assuming there are other firefighters that could also try and attain the same
Sure.
certification,
Yep.
okay? Is, not that, we don't want more, but if every one of your guys got it, we're looking at a substantial budget.
We are, but as of this time, I don't have anybody new that's looking towards getting it.
Okay.
And we do have about, offhand, there's about 6 or 7 basic EMTs. And we would pattern our hiring practice in the future based on those numbers. So if we were paramedic heavy, we would look to offset that.
Because I'm not looking to limit somebody's ability to
Right.
better themselves, but at the same time, if we
No,
have no
I-
control over how many we have.
It's an impact, obviously.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Not uncommon. I know from another town that they do the same thing. And that's what your risk is if you don't have that incentive, is once they get it and they're not gonna get the pay incentive, they'll go to another town that they won't.
Yeah.
And you will have paid for reimbursement of the classes.
No, Donna, my point was not that I don't wanna see us pay these people.
Right.
But if you've got 5, okay, and 7 more people are capable of getting it,
Yep.
and we can't say, no, wait a minute, we're all set with 5. We're gonna pick up another $45,000 in payroll expenses with no discretion.
Right.
That was my only point.
Yeah.
That was my-
Good point.
But I want him to have all the tools he needs, that's the other side of it.
They're the tools of the community, because at the end of the day, that's who's gonna benefit the most out of these individuals. And the other big topic that I have is we have one of the engines is 25 years old, and looking for a capital purchase to replace that. I have researched some documentation on looking at possibly financing it, and I have copies. I reached out to a leasing company that provided some data as to costs. I'll give you guys two.
We had the capital plan.
Is it on the capital plan?
I believe it is, yes.
That's his one. Well, he's got 2, but,
Thank you.
yeah.
Oh, I have,
Yeah, I've got that.
I have that.
Oh, you made copies.
I did.
I made copies.
Well, I printed it.
Engine 1, that's the 20 truck. 600. On the capital plan, that's the next year. So the existing engines and, how would I say that? The degenerating state, I guess, it's.
Yes, yeah, obviously. 20 years is a good point of reference for an engine. This is obviously 25 years, and obviously, over time, we've started to incur more cost associated with maintaining that vehicle. And then the longer you go, obviously, it gets out of standard. So there may be safety concerns and stuff like that. But the way we've approached our capital purchase plan regarding vehicles is we look to replace them. We're actually looking at replacing an engine every 15 years just to put it in a reserve status at the end of that, so that in the needs of one of the frontline engines breaking down, we'd be able to have that one as a reserve.
So essentially you'd have, I'm not sure your numbers, but you'd have 5 or 6 ready-to-go engines. You
We
might
only have
a couple-
3.
You got 3, and then you'd have 1 or 2 that if you had to use it, you could use it.
Typically, we use 2 engines primarily. The third one is situated at Station 2, which is up here on Main Street. That would be for the incoming call department to get and use that as a third engine. So the use of that engine drops dramatically once it becomes that third engine in the fleet.
So you place the third engine to be replaced, and one of the other
One of the
engines
other ones
you
is,
move down,
the
and you
older
keep
one
the
is
2
gonna.
best ones
Right,
up
so
front.
kind of just a shifting.
I'm not understanding all the technology of firefighters, an engine versus a ladder truck versus, what is an engine?
Engine brings
Pumps-
water,
pumps the water.
hose. Yep, puts the fire out. Yeah.
Because I'm looking, I'm saying an engine, that's about yay big, 50, not, you know, $600,000 is a lot of money for an engine.
Slightly bigger, slightly bigger.
So if the town went ahead and purchased that, how long would it take us to get one?
I have a committee together now speccing an engine, just in advance of that, because we want to be ready to go. So typically, once the engine's been spec'd and signed off on, it's usually a 6-month delivery date.
Oh, that's not too bad. I know some trucks can be a year and a half.
Yeah.
Say you can get an engine in 6 months, and the highway department waits 14 months to get a dump truck with it. That makes no sense.
It's
They build them, and people buy them, I suppose. I don't know.
assembly line, and I thank you, Mr. Lemansky, for mentioning the public safety building, but one of the nice things moving forward, if that goes through, is that we will no longer be required to sort of fit the engine into the existing fire department. We have to customize our engines currently in order to make them fit, which is an up cost, even to shrink the size of the vehicle. Because they have a standard chassis, and nope, we need it 1.5 feet shorter.
Oh.
So,
Now, does that compromise the use of the truck at the same time?
no, it's, obviously, there's a space issue, you lose space, but, firemen are pretty good at making things fit into the space they have available.
Any other questions for the chief? Oh, thank you very much.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you, Chief.
Thank you very much. Chief.
What's next?
Nothing.
People, I have one other thing that I wanted to hand out.
No,
Kind of goes with the water and sewer OPEB that I handed out.
Oh, okay.
it
I
is.
also did one for the rest of it.
You did one for the whole town? Yeah, right.
And you can see I'm not funding
Unless
that in the
my
budget
agenda.
because we can't afford it, but I tried to do it over like a 50-year period.
Where is it? Oh, here it is.
50?
Government's been in business for a long time.
What's this?
This is my OPEB
Oh,
over 50 years.
oh,
And I highlighted where on the OPEB report, where the numbers come from, so it's broken out by water, sewer, town, and that's our total. Someone asked me last time what the unfunded liability was. So you can see those numbers tie out to the numbers started at the top.
Thank you.
So even though we may only put $100,000 in the operating budget, we have put more in at other times. But I'd say you have to be, to do it in 50 years, you'd be having to put about 220. And that's gonna change as the market changes.
those people start dying sooner.
Yeah, we're gonna move that along.
some inquiry about, having them come in to do a presentation, and I, actually had a date picked out, and we've had to change it twice, but before I go and try to book another time with her, the cost is like $2,000, so I didn't know if that's something you wanted to have, and maybe not all the time, but maybe once, have somebody come in and explain the actuarial report.
This is for OPEB?
This is for the OPEB.
Who are you having come in?
Huh?
Who was coming in?
The person that did it, KMS.
Oh.
I'd probably be looking towards May.
And if you were gonna do it, you might wanna see about
Oh, no,
making
we
that
can
a
do
joint
anyway.
meeting with the Board of Selectmen, because it is so costly.
Yeah, but it's coming out of the treasurer's budget, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've picked up lunch.
Pick it up one.
I just wasn't sure before I try to firm up a date. We're probably looking now some point in May, maybe early May. Just because there was a lot going on in March with all your meetings. I tried to do a couple April ones and we were in conflict, so I didn't know what your preference was. Still want to move forward with it. I'll try to work for May and maybe invite the selectmen, or if I can get a Tuesday, maybe we do it on a Tuesday, although they have a lot usually going on in meetings.
So is the presentation gonna change anything to do with our contribution, or is it just this an $2,000 explanation?
It's an explanation, but there, you can ask questions about, what can you do, to lower your OPEB unfunded liability? There are things, I believe, the change that I just was at last night with the Board of Selectmen actually will lower your, I'm hoping, will lower your unfunded liability by doing a plan design change, on the health insurance. So there are different things that you can do to try to bring that number down a little bit. And there's some concepts too about when you're fully funded on your retirement, you can put a policy in play, and some of the actuarials are taking it, that you'll start funding the OPEB with the differential that you save at the time you're fully funded. The number's gonna come down on retirement, and that you would just shift that over to OPEB, and some of the actuarials have agreed to put that into the calculation. So but I haven't asked her about it, because we don't have a policy, but you'd have to have at least at the beginning, a written policy.
Yeah.
How does the committee feel about that? I kind of feel that Donna knows what she's doing.
Yeah, I just don't think it's gonna change our contribution amounts to spend $2,000 to get an explanation on.
You're saying you could Google it just as easy?
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that the $2,000 is gonna explain how they come up with a number, but it's not gonna change our contribution, what we can contribute.
Right.
And you know what you're doing, right?
Sort of.
Sort of, yeah.
I'm not an actuary, that's why
Yeah.
I'm kind of coming into this ever saying that I am, because, I give all the numbers and go, wow, like, how did they figure that out? Because it is a special math.
Yeah.
They're predicting the future.
For many years.
I say no.
We have
Is
a-
there any chance that they could save us $2,000? We would find $2,000 worth of savings in there?
In your unfunded liability, probably not. They're like an auditor. They're just coming in, they're doing a,
Would them coming in help you?
no.
So I kind of rely on you and Robin to know these things and explain it to us when we need to know it. So, does anyone want it?
No?
That doesn't sound like it's worth it.
I guess, for the finance committee, I guess it's no.
Okay. That's why I said I didn't want to pursue any further on a date when I was like, 2,000, huh? But that is the going cost, I know, in the other town that I had been in, was the cost, and they had it once with a joint meeting with finance and Board of Selectmen, and never again. Not because she doesn't know her stuff, she does, it's just most of us are not at an actuary level, so you kind of get glazed over quickly.
But this is also something we could get later if we really
Oh,
desire it, we
absolutely.
could get it any time.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be 4,000 then.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're gonna get the
If
price
there's
up a
any
little.
consolation, it was 2,000 like 5 years ago.
Oh, was it?
So,
Okay, anything, anyone else have anything?
Do you want, me to just fill them in on my conversation with the highway superintendent?
Yeah.
Right. So the highway superintendent came in today. I've asked him to write this up and give it to me in writing. He had a crash with one of his trucks. There was an accident, a truck plowed into him. The truck is totaled. He can take the sander off and the plow, and the chassis, which should be fixed, is totaled, and they'll only give him about $4,000, so that's not going to get him another truck. At the same time, he did a check with a couple of vehicles, 2 of the older vehicles, and found that there is some substantial rot on the frame. And he's now, you know, we do have an excellent mechanic on staff, and they've been, you know, keeping these trucks going. And he'll say it to you too, you know, maybe he's gone too far at trying to keep everything together. So he's concerned that he needs 2 trucks. He's got 12 routes. He's down to 10 trucks, and is concerned for next year. So I'm gonna also talk with the selectmen on Monday about this. And what I'd like to do is to take a look at, and Jerry had asked the possibility of doing an emergency procurement for this. His concern is, and I think you mentioned this earlier, it takes so long for him to get the trucks. They purchase Freightliners. It's near a year. His concern is if we wait till town meeting, that month and a half could still put him further into next winter, and he still won't have the trucks. He said that his agent, if he could order them now, could probably get them to him in time. I don't know if he's next week or the week after, but I'm assuming he's going to also be telling you this himself at some point. Is he next week?
no, no one's next week except Dudley Charlton.
Okay, so it would be a couple of weeks, so,
Yeah.
I'll
Doesn't
get
he
the
have a truck
information.
on order right now?
He does, not that I'm aware of.
No?
Did he get hurt, by the way?
No. Was there one funded last year?
Yeah, there was.
Okay, so there's one on the way, then he's adding that in. So once I get the write-up from him, I wanted to take the opportunity to tell you, now, since you're sitting here, if you have any questions, but once I get that, I will forward it to Jerry, and he can send it out to all of you, so you can see it.
There's no insurance?
The insurance was $5,000 on the truck that got in an accident, because it's so old. They're in 1990 something trucks.
He's looking for another Freightliner, the $152,000 one.
Yeah, so he said he's only looking for 2, he's imagining that's gonna be around $300,000. So I'll talk to the selectmen, we have some funding in one of the accounts that we may be able to do a transfer of one of the settlement type accounts.
So we're looking for 2, so he doesn't want these.
Is that why my road was yucky all winter?
She said
That
he's
was
only
the
looking for 2.
For,
They do really well with the little that they have.
Just as a point of information, we do have a meeting scheduled for next week. If they have to, if we have a quorum, we could make a vote on that next week, exclusive of Dudley Shield, if we have to, if we have a quorum. Don't have a quorum, well, we don't.
Okay.
Well, I'm also gonna contact the state just to find out, you know, rules change quite often, what we need to do for an emergency procurement, if we need to do it, if it'll pass the muster of that, and I'm not exactly sure it will, so I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, do I hear?
I'm just gonna
Oh.
ask one question.
Go ahead.
Given the fact that the use value of that truck far exceeds its accounting value, is there any insurance that makes sense to carry at a higher rate for this type of event in the future?
Do you mean for a replacement versus a value truck?
Replace, yeah, something in the, like total replacement insurance, or I'm not sure the right,
I can have that
the
conversation.
proper, term,
Gaffney?
but a quick cost analysis would kind of be interesting if I had a machine that was pumping out $1 million worth of parts every year, but if, you know, something crashed into my building, the insurance company was gonna give me $5,000, I would be taking some other kind of measures there to safeguard myself.
The
If you have
insurance,
an older fleet, if you're paying that high of a insurance premium for a replacement, you don't know, that vehicle could go 4 or 5 years and you're paying additional monies.
I
So
understand,
you're right,
I understand, it's totally a math thing, and then it's a judgment call, but I don't have any information, and if you haven't assured yourself that that's not the case, it might be worth a quick look and see if there is cheap money, cheap insurance, relatively speaking, that makes any sort of sense.
well, you can get insurance, you and, I don't mean you, Pastor, but one person can have an agreement with the insurance company that if something happens to that thing, they will replace it at the money you pay. But then the insurance rate you pay
Goes up.
has to cover that 50,000 or whatever it might happen to be. So the insurance rate goes way up for replacing something as opposed to just what's left of the total value of the
I
piece of
totally
equipment.
understand it,
Yeah.
and in most of my own economics, I actually find that self-insuring, if you can manage the cash flow, is the best thing to do. But there are cases where it makes some sense, you know.
Tina Turner,
Yeah.
insuring her legs, right?
Yeah.
Nobody would
Doctor-
insure their legs, but
Doctors and hands, absolutely, a surgeon's got his hands covered.
Any other questions? Do you hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
So called.
I had to, I deleted another 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.